Founders, welcome back to the 0 to 5,000 podcast, where we obsess over the convergence of human potential and business results. Today, our hosts Drew McClure and Jordan Mitchell have another insightful conversation for you. So let's jump right in.
Okay, founders, welcome back to the podcast. Today, we are joined by Anna Crowe. Anna is founder and CEO of Crowe PR, an award-winning integrated public relations and digital marketing agency focused on growing mid to large-size consumer goods, healthcare and technology, and hospitality brands. Crowe is a recognized public relations expert, best-selling author, speaker, and marketing faculty. For over 20 years, Crowe has represented iconic brands around the globe, pivoting from a Big Four CPA track to founding and scaling a national public relations agency. Her focus on developing extraordinary leaders and helping organizations thrive has led to several notable recognitions, including CEO of the Year, Best Places to Work, Women Who Mean Business, PR Team of the Year, Inc. 5000, and more. And today, joining us herself is Anna. So Anna, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Drew. It's a pleasure to connect with you.
Absolutely. Well, the accolades speak for themselves. You've clearly built a successful business, but where did we get started?
Well, we got started with this company about 10 years ago, just under 10. I thought it was time for me to venture out into this business, but that is not where I started from the beginning. I actually started my career in the financial realm. I was an auditor at a little company called Deloitte. And I would have not thought that 20 years later, I'd be running and growing a PR firm. But that's the cool and interesting thing about our professional journeys, right?
Yeah. So very different career path, being an auditor versus thinking strategically and creatively like a PR agency. So when did you start to get the itch or the idea that maybe you wanted to pivot?
Yes. I always wanted to go into a creative field, and I have a lot of creative side hustles. So, I paint and I do a lot of things, but I also just love numbers over the years. So I went into accounting in my first career because I just loved how numbers made a lot of sense. They drive a lot of businesses forward, and I think that experience at Deloitte really helped me. I learn about financials, understand how successful brands document, quantify, create strategies and all of that. And about 6 years into my career, I decided to go back to grad school and receive my MBA with a global marketing concentration. So I pivoted because I found a lot of interest working on these different brands and identifying what makes them successful in addition to the numbers, the creative strategies, the brand equity that they've built. And post MBA, I've really pivoted my career to more in the marketing and sales realm, and eventually finding my way to public relations, which I just fell in love with because it made so much sense. Storytelling, reputation, all of those things, the connections that brands can make with their customers are so powerful. And so I decided to apply my financial background to the marketing realm. And I think, I love ideas. I come up with a lot of ideas. And so being able to quantify those ideas and make sure that what we're doing is going to move a company forward is something I'm really excited about.
Yeah. Have you seen that skill set and that background be a competitive advantage for you in this space?
Absolutely. And I think because I can read P&Ls and understand metrics, it's especially in today's data-driven world, it's become very handy. And so I can still come up with a great idea potentially and have my team generate a lot of things that are strategic and then put some numbers behind it.
Yeah, totally. So what was that first year like for you opening this business?
I don't know. I don't remember. Just kidding.
PTSD.
Yeah, no, it was really exciting. I think when I started the business, it was Christmas Eve. And when I say started, I mean I incorporated it on Christmas Eve of what is it? What are we in? 2014.
14?
And I think my first day in business was January 5th, 2015. And I just remember having this blank laptop and thinking, okay, I have no email. It was just very kind of a free feeling too. But also as a blank canvas. I really looked at it as a blank canvas. And from there, I got a few clients. And that first year was really about doing the best work I could possibly do for those first four clients. And from there, it grew. The work spoke for itself, and I started getting more business. And we had our first hire about 10 months into the agency's life, and that was very
Wow.
exciting.
That's
It
fast.
was, yeah, and it was very exciting but then also sort of daunting, like, wait, I have to give you money to pay your bills. Hold on a second. It was really, but it was cool. And we had a lot of fun because everything was new. We were creating processes, changing processes, writing things on a piece of paper, crumpling it up and throwing it out,
Yeah.
thinking big, like, what about this? Can we do this? Can we execute? How do we execute? What partners do we need? So it was a very exciting time, I thought, and really fun and really had no limits.
Yeah. How did you land that first customer?
Well, I landed the first customer before I started the business. So I wanted to make sure that when I went out on my own, that I had a plan. I had a mortgage and I had kids, and that was something that was important to me. I always have a backup plan. So I did that through some relationships. I really just put it out there that that's what I was looking to do, and it worked out. But I think my first big customer, the one that enabled me to hire the first individual, really came through my past experience and the relationships I have built. I always found that working really hard and showing up in a positive way and having really good energy and sort of this, we can do anything together and roll up our sleeves, has really helped me throughout my career in all jobs. And it doesn't matter what the role was. I felt like that attitude was really beneficial. And so I was able to reconnect with some former team members. And before I knew it, I was able to land our first big account.
Really cool. And what was the type of work that you were doing on the first account?
A lot of media relations. So our agency is an integrated PR firm. We do earned media and thought leadership, also complementing with influencer marketing and organic social media. But those first couple of years really were all about media relations. So getting our clients into the news cycle, in the press, building their reputation, trust with their customers, and visibility. So a lot of it was picking up the phone and calling journalists, getting
Yeah.
clients on TV, staging a lot of press conferences and events, check presentations, ribbons cuttings, you name it, and then writing press releases. So that was really the first year, was all about this earned media and building reputation.
Super cool. And what was that first employee? Like, what kind of role did you realize quickly I need to add to help me with this?
Yeah, I think you realize we can't multiply ourselves fast enough when the business is growing. And so I looked for someone who would complement my strengths as well as my weaknesses, right? What is the best, highest use of my time? And how do I delegate what needs to get done and make sure it's done at the high standard that I have set from the beginning? Because the beginning is just you. So
Yeah.
what's my standard? Okay, so it was just trying to parlay that knowledge and have someone who can do the work at the same caliber that I was expecting, that our clients were expecting. And from there on, I think by end of year two, we had two more employees. So we had four. And that was a really cool challenge because you had to find ways to communicate and create these processes that don't exist, because you can't physically replicate and do the same thing over and over with a bunch of different people without really established processes and SOPs. So that was a
Sure.
different new challenge, and thinking, okay, well, is my highest best use of time pitching the media, or is it creating processes and systems to hire the best people who with the right experience to do the job? So that's when it started shifting.
I would imagine your personality and your skill set was pretty good at that. Was that easier for you or a challenge in that creating of the first systems and processes?
Oh, it was a great challenge. I enjoyed it because of my love for numbers. I love going into Excel and PowerPoints and all these things.
Yeah.
But the challenge was that as we scaled, we've had to scrap the processes or elevate them. So you would put something in place, you're like, yes, and it works great for 6 people. Doesn't work for 15. Okay. Now what do we need to do? Right. So I think that was just the more challenging thing, is when you get somewhere and you're like, oh, I got to change it again.
Yeah.
But that's also I think the really fun thing for entrepreneurs is just creating. And I do love having process. I think it sets us free as entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
and even just the hiring process, right? Finding the right talent. We can bring a bunch of people into the organization, but if they're not the right fit and we don't tell them how to do the process, it's just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. I would love to talk about that for a second. What have you learned over the 10 years about better locating or, you know, finding if somebody is a good fit for your team, your culture? That's tough.
It is tough, especially when the labor market changes, COVID gets involved, the economy, right? I think what's worked really well for us, and by the way, we've learned through mistakes as well,
Sure.
is that we want to make sure that everyone we bring in is in alignment with our core values. So identifying those core values at the start, identifying your vision and your mission at the start is really critical, because then you can make decisions based on those intangible items, right? It's not just, this feels like a good candidate. Look at their resume. It's amazing. People can put a lot of things on their resume. That does not mean that they can execute in the same way that's on their
Sure.
resume. Or so for us, in the beginning, I think we had maybe 8 values, which is a lot. We scaled it back. We're actually now at 5. So that's a
Very
great
good.
thing. And our company knows what they are. We talk about them regularly. And we make those decisions, right? So are we hiring someone who is a core values fit or not? Because you can have people with great experience, but they may not fit the culture.
Sure.
And then it creates also some, it doesn't optimize the environment.
Yeah. Did you kind of put this together yourself, or did you follow something like an EOS or traction type system to help you put these things in place?
Yeah, early on when our business was about a couple of years old, I joined the Entrepreneurs Organizations Accelerator Organization, which is a feeder to EO. And EO is a global network of entrepreneurs. I think there's 18,000 of them now.
Yep.
And in EOA, you had these quarterly, what we call growth days. And it's a full day you spend working on the business. Because when you're first starting the business, how much time are you working on versus in, right? You're in it.
Right.
You're
Right.
talking to clients, you're doing
All
all the
day.
things, you're all day. So it was a really beautiful opportunity to be intentional and spend a whole day working on the business. And there were definitely elements of EOS and traction in those days, as well as some scaling up references through
Yeah.
other books and Rockefeller
Learned.
habits and all of that.
Yep.
And I'm an avid reader, so I just consume all that information. So yeah, so I think those were influential, absolutely. And we've actually self-implemented traction and EOS for quite a bit until last year, where we hired an EOS trainer to bring some additional foundational stuff into the business. I think we got to about 70% on our own between the
Sure.
values, traction, all that stuff, data, scorecards, and we needed to elevate just that other third party to come in and help us.
Have you found that to be beneficial?
Absolutely. I highly recommend it. I think when your leadership team is aligned on the vision, on this, why we're pulling data, that's paramount. And then communicating that to the broader agency so that everybody has a sense of not just accountability, but ownership. Why are we doing this? Right? Making decisions based on what we've set through in the plan. When we're all in unity and looking in the same direction, it just makes work so much easier, so much more effective, more efficient. And we can have conversations that are specific to EOS and not just, well, I don't really want to tell this person, well, why are we having this conversation? So I highly recommend it.
Love it. Yes, we're a big fan of it over here. We've
Are you?
had, oh yeah. So we didn't talk about this, but outside of this, I run a coaching and consulting company, and that is one of our favorite things that we get brought in to do on the organization side for teams. But on this podcast in general, probably 40 to 50% of the founders, I would say, that I've interviewed have used at least elements of traction for
Wow.
their own business. And so it's just the audience has heard it 100 times. It's like it's just been so helpful. It's not helpful for every size company at every point in
Right.
their journey, right? But earlier on in smaller agencies and medium-sized companies and things like that, it's been phenomenal. So
Mhm.
super cool to hear. I want to
Love that.
pivot a little bit on business in general is hard to be successful at all. And then it gets harder to do it for 10 years. And then it's also difficult depending on industry, and professional services can be a tough industry to
Mhm.
keep getting clients and keep, even knowing how to project like, hey, can we hire someone? I don't know. We might have some turnover in clients and things like that.
Yep.
So I'm just curious, what have you learned that you've seen for your own business to be able to provide that value year in and year out to your customers that has allowed you to be so successful?
Yeah, I mean, all the things you said are so true, right? You're could have the best couple of years and working on amazing clients, and then something changes for that client, and all of a sudden you're like, oh shoot.
No
And
fault of your own. Their budget changes, whatever. And you're like,
right,
what? Now we're out.
correct. You've integrated with the whole team, you've done all this work. Or on the other side, you've got your right team, and all of a sudden this amazing new business comes. You're like, wait, can we service it? Do we want to service it? Are we hiring fast enough? Are we not hiring fast enough? Do we have the right team? It is so many moving parts. And then I'm layering on top of that, the industry shifting, technology, elevating certain things, removing other things, AI. There's just so much. It is not a very static place to be. So I found that you have to really love the dynamics of agency life and professional services, because it is not something you can do the same way every day for the next 10, 20, or 30 years.
Yeah.
You've got to have that personality and that attitude around like, okay, today may be different, and also that hunger to really drive a client's business forward. How can I make the best impact? How can I learn in the process? So I think what I've learned over the years is just to be really nimble, to be very strategic, to think a few steps ahead, to really understand our customers' industries and what's driving their industries forward, their businesses forward. And then going back to the numbers, one of the first conversations that we have with lead and prospective clients is, what are your success metrics? How are you measuring success? What's keeping you up at night? What are the things that have worked well? So I really understanding that business, and then knowing what's happening in the industry and how to keep engaging with their customers on their behalf in a dynamic environment. So whereas it used to be, as I said, when we started, earned media was all the rage, and it still is. And now a lot of customers are making decisions based on social media. So influencers have skyrocketed over the last few years. Well, we need to be able to predict how that's going to look in 1 to 2 years. So we're having those conversations even with influencers, with members of the press. We're continuously leaning on those partners too, to see what they're seeing, as we're leaning on our client partners to see what they're seeing in their industries. But I think that knowledge is so powerful. And so we have to always pick up our head and be like, okay, what's going on? And not just do the work because it changes.
So what I'm hearing is there's an acceptance of the landscape of the business where some people can fight it and resist it and just be like, I hate that it's always changing, instead of just accepting it. Like, hey, it's dynamic, it's fluid. And if I have the right perspective and attitude, this can be fun. This can be engaging. Then it also sounds like you're doing a great job of picking your head up and trying to forecast as best as possible. Learn the market, where are things going, trends. Is that part of the reason why you stay competitive and stay busy, really?
Yeah, I think so. And also finding the right partners. We are not an agency that is all things to every client. We have our subject matter expertise, and we have partners for things that we know are going to be valuable to our clients. People and companies that we've vetted, that we trust, that we know are going to do a fantastic job, that we can bring in. It used to be when I started, can you do this? Yes. Can you do that? Absolutely.
Sure. We'll figure it out.
Figure it out. Right. Right. Can't really do that anymore. So once you get past a certain stage, you're just like, no, we have to really know what we're doing here and find the right people who can do it. Going back, isn't there a quote? It's like the only constant in life is change. Or something like that, right?
Yep.
So so embracing that. And that's part of our values too. Entrepreneurial mindset is one of our values. That means that, okay, that did not work out how I anticipated. Well, we're just gonna pick up pick it up and do something different and try something else. And I did not see that coming. Why? Like even the last 4 years, right? A lot of people would argue we did not see a lot of that coming. Okay. How do we deal with this? What do we need to do? And by the way, knowing that things can and will change, especially with technology where it is today.
Yeah. What are some of the shifts or challenges in the current landscape that you're seeing right now?
Well, I think, when through the lens of our customers, right? We get brought on to help build the brand, to help amplify a brand, build a company, take them to the next level by creating that trust and that awareness with our clients' customers. Some of our clients are in the B2C space, so their customers are end users, consumers, different demographics, different psychographics. Some of our customers are in a B2B space, So their customers are other companies, right? So for us, it's really understanding how their customers are getting information. How are they building connections with our clients? And so for us, it's always keeping a pulse on what is the right way to communicate. Communications is really at the heart of what we do. How do we tell that story? How do we take real estate away from competing options? It used to be that we had to have 7 impressions to make a buying decision, right? On average, the buying behavior is, oh, I heard about something 7 times, I'm ready. On average, sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 30, but it used to be 7. But nowadays, with social media, with our lives where they are, it's 30. So we have to
That's a
hear
lot.
something. It's a lot. On average, we have to hear something 30 because we get distracted all day long, right? You may see something, you're like, oh, I'm really interested. Oh, I have a text message. Oh, I got an email. Oh, I got this. Boom, or we're
Yeah.
gone. Our mind share is gone. So brands are continuously fighting for that mind share. And it's our job to be able to become a relevant element in those customers' mind share. I don't know if that
So,
answered your question. I might have
oh
not know
yeah,
how to answer.
yeah, that's great. So if it sounds like it's nearly 4x, a little bit more than 4x the amount of impressions we now need to get to make a buying decision. Has the
And
cost?
trust, right? And also part of it is trust, because
Yeah,
we can have ads served to us all day, every day, and those are great. But how do I trust that that is something that's going to make my life better, especially if it comes to things in healthcare? Like this supplement is your number one supplement. Well, what's in it? If I have credible sources actually promoting that, whether it's publications or influencers that I trust, or finding the storyline, I understand the founder story. Those are 10 times more impactful than the advertisements. The advertisements are important, don't get me
yeah,
wrong. They are a
yeah.
huge piece of the marketing mix. And it's beautiful to have a complement of the integrated PR element with the advertising.
Well, I was just going to ask for the founders that are listening that maybe they're running paid ads. Maybe they've taken a page out of Alex Hormozi's book and they're trying to, have their own founder identity online. What's a common mistake you see them making that they could start doing differently today?
Yeah, I think really understanding the full marketing mix and what is the best way to connect with those customers you're trying to get out front of. It changes. Even Google algorithms change, social media algorithms change. I think with advertising on Meta used to yield different results than it is today, and it's very competitive. And I think with advertising, the thing that happens sometimes is the minute you stop, so do the sales. With integrated PR, you're building something for the future. It's a sustainable model. You're building that trust. You're building that desire to connect and engage with the brand. So but there's so many different levels of facets of marketing, right? There's
Yeah.
SEO. Even the pricing decisions you make are all part of a marketing decision, from psychological pricing. So I think that my advice is really to understand what are all the different marketing pillars are, and try to do your best in finding the partner or hire that can help you determine how to best leverage your resources.
Mm,
Those are limited, the marketing resources, right? And ideally they scale year over year as the company scales, but there's only so much to go around. And sometimes I've seen clients throw a lot of money into something that didn't really yield those greater results. And sometimes it's a
yes.
test, but having the experts who are keeping the pulse on where are the best places today versus tomorrow versus the next year, I think is critical, because we
Yeah.
can drop a lot of money on a lot of different things to market.
Which that's the overwhelming part for a
Mhm.
founder or a one person marketer at a company that gives you a job in a good way, meaning like it's a lot to understand. And especially when the landscape is changing and you're like, man, I finally nailed paid ads. And then paid ads changes completely and you're not reaching your audience like you thought you were anymore. And
Right.
you just wasted 10 grand a month on something that's not bringing you in the money. And now
Mhm.
you're confused, right? Um, so when you say integrated PR, I understand, I think what you mean, but is there a kind of a simple definition of what we're talking about when we say integrated PR?
Yeah. So we look at it as different tactics that build brand awareness and reputation and trust. And for us, it's really a combination of earned media, which is getting visibility through credible channels. We know that Google trusts Forbes website or Well and Good website or website more so than they trust any brand.
Got it.
So because there's another layer of someone reviewing and testing and speaking about a product or a service. It's not just the brand saying we're the best, and then a year later being like, well, we weren't the best.
Yeah.
So it's someone else. That third party validation is huge. Just like we look at Yelp reviews, right?
Mhm.
So the earned media piece is still very strong. It also allows for storytelling with the thought leadership you mentioned. So yes, building that visibility potentially for the founder, the CEO, the C-suite, or it could be a key opinion leader. That's part of the PR umbrella. We also look at the influencer marketing space because so many consumers are looking at social media for decision making, and there are influencers are generating movement. They all have
Yeah.
different capabilities and different results. However, we do look as consumers to people who we've built trust with. And so that's another piece of the umbrella. It's again that reputation management through that program. And then I look at organic social differently today than I did even 5 years ago. It used to be, well, that's digital marketing, that's social media, but organic social really is an online reputation thing as well. It's how we can tell the story in an organic way through our platforms, right? It's the dynamic website where your end users are going to go to understand the brand, to engage with the brand. So to me, it is also part of the reputation. You say something there that doesn't jive with how you're talking about your brand elsewhere, it's going to create confusion. So you have to be really intentional of what you're doing on social media. And there's a lot of technologies out there now. Oh, write me copy this, write me copy that. But consumers are also very savvy. And
Mhm.
they know if they are connecting with a brand that they build and trust, or if something else is going on here. So it's finding that right way also to leverage the technologies that exist and be able to tell the brand story in an authentic way. And that takes skill, right?
Yeah.
So again, it goes back to finding the right team for something like that.
Yeah. It's a little bit adjacent, but you mentioned adopting technology. Like, so far, it seems like things like ChatGPT are maybe great for a first draft, but
Mm-hmm.
people outside of a creative world assume it's going to replace someone with
Right.
years of knowledge and expertise. And it's like, no, it might be able to put legible words or thoughts together in sometimes a unique way. But what you're talking about is, yeah, but what's the tone of voice? How is
Mm-hmm.
that really coming across? How is that, sitting with the audience? Is it the same kind of message they're used to? Like, is that how you've seen adopting in a kind of creative field some of these technologies right now?
Exactly. I think it's great for efficiencies. I think it's great for brainstorms. To your point, the first draft, sometimes we just get stuck, right? We're
Yeah.
like, I can't think of what I should say. And
Yes.
so it's great for those. But yes, and it can save a huge amount of time on certain things, especially pulling data, pulling information, all great. But you do need that authentic connection to the brand. I don't think that's at this stage is not replaceable because at the end of the day, it's people's money. They're paying for an experience that this brand or company is offering. And guess what? There's so much competition in every industry these days, right?
Yeah.
And it may be daunting to launch another company that's in X because, wow, there's so many of them. But we see time and time over new companies emerge and they drive success and sometimes drive the older companies out of business. So they're doing something right. Well, one of the things they're doing right is they have a strong brand that they've been working on and connecting with their customer in the right way. And they're at the right time in the right place. But they are being very intentional about it. They're not just throwing a bunch of words on a piece of paper. We have to get that mind share. We have to get that attention. And it's got to be a clear message. It has to be a consistent message. And it has to be a compelling message.
Mm, makes total sense. Okay. Final two questions. One, if someone's listening that needs your help, they're like, yeah, this all sounds great, but I don't want to do it. I don't know how to do it. We need your help. Where do we send them?
Well, our website is great. It's crowepr.com, CROWEPR.com.
Okay.
Also, my LinkedIn is great. It's if you'd like to share that. But I think if you want to visit our website, you can see some of the work that we've done, some of our capabilities, and if you just want to ask some questions. I do love, and my team, same thing, loves working and speaking to prospective clients who are just like, well, I'm just not sure what is the right strategy. And by the way, what we do is not always the right strategy, but we're happy to counsel that and say, you know what you need first, perhaps is this. Like we have some partners that are branding agencies that we say, hey, we don't quite understand the brand yet. It's probably too early for us to start promoting it and talking about it. Let's get a better understanding of your identity. And then don't spend money right now on this. Spend money on that. And then when it's in a good shape, then we can start talking about you.
Perfect. Last question, because you're a reader and a learner like myself, what's a book that you are finding yourself recommending often right now?
Oh my gosh. It's really so many. I wrote out a whole thing the other day. Okay. So right now, can I give you a couple?
Because, sure. Yeah, more the better.
So it depends on where you are in your phase of business or leadership or whatnot. But some of the books, if for business owners specifically, one of the books I've really enjoyed lately, two of the books I've really enjoyed lately is Limitless by Jim Quick.
Yep.
As well as 10X is easier than 2X.
Yes,
I think
Dan Sullivan.
Dan Sullivan. That's not so great for business owners and leaders.
It was challenging in the best possible way because he really thinks about it differently, and it was very challenging and eye-opening to me.
Yeah, I thought so too. And then, of course, there's the Good to Great, Jim Collins, where we're thinking about teams and building cultures and companies. I loved that book, right? I loved the right people on the bus. It's sort of a spin-off of some of the EOS stuff, but just presented in a different way. So those are some of the things that I read. And then, of course, there are more surreal books like The Surrender Experiment that I also love to remind myself as a growing leader and a business owner that some things we can't always just be doing. Sometimes we have to be, and sometimes things don't work out, and that's okay as well. So those combinations
is that from the Untethered Soul author?
It's exactly. It's another book from him. Yeah. Michael Singer.
That's what it is. I could not remember his name. Yes.
Yeah. He's got a great podcast now.
I think in Untethered Soul, he mentioned the surrender experiment as a phrase. So I guess he then wrote a book on it.
Yes, exactly. I'm not sure which one was first, but one of them, both are great books. They're just a little bit different.
Cool.
And then lastly, Atomic Habits, of course.
Of course. James Clear, still making bank. 5 years later, still New York Times bestseller. It's a great book. What is on the Jim Quick one? I've not heard someone reference that before. I know Jim Quick. I don't know him personally, but what about that was helpful to you in business, the Limitless book?
Yeah, I actually saw him on stage a few years back. And this year I had him as a guest speaker at the Entrepreneurs Organization chapter here in San Diego. And he was amazing.
Cool.
That book is, and actually I'm currently president of EO, and that is my theme for the year, Limitless. So it's easy for me to go back to it. But he really, he challenges our brain potential and what we believe we're capable of versus what we are capable of. So it's sort of in the same purview as 10X, but less professional for here's how you do your business, but more surreal, like how do we optimize ourselves? How do we push the limits of possibilities and get our lives to that next level professionally, personally, you name it. It's just it's got a lot of tips, great story. He had a traumatic brain injury as a kid and, really learned how to relearn how to learn. And then it also has some tips and tricks on how to read faster, how to memorize people's names, just things you use in a daily setting.
So I love it. I'm going to read it. I'm surprised I haven't by this point, but that is great recommendations. If you're listening, haven't read any of those books, please check them out. Anna, this has been phenomenal. It is clear why you've been so successful, smart, sharp, hardworking, and staying on the cutting edge of things. So I appreciate you being here today and sharing some of your wisdom with us.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to connect with you and look forward to continuing the conversation offline.
That'd be awesome.
Founders, thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and hop into our monthly founder email so we can ensure you stay on the edge of peak performance and massive business results.